it's Brewbird. Welcome back to the channel for all things fermented, brewed, and distilled. This is part 3 of my adventures distilling gin in India. In this video, we're going to focus in on color degradation in gin. So, let's go! With the popularity of gin, distilleries are now working to make their gins more exciting by adding colors to them. So you have pink gins, purple, blue gins, some gins with glitter powder in them to try to attract people to buy those bottles. And the trouble with adding natural colorants to gin is that they tend to fade fairly quickly. So I have a sample of pink gin from the Shakespeare Distillery, which I've kept for over 3 years now, and I'll show you what it looks like now. So this is their rhubarb gin. Let me see if you can see it. The initial color for the pink gin was a very bright, vivid pink color, and I'll show you what the product looked like initially. And now you can see it's kind of a light yellowish color, yellow-brownish color. And that's what happens a lot of times when you try to color gin naturally, is that natural colorant will start to fade away after being exposed to light or just over time. The color compounds tend to break down and it turns into a different sort of color. Rahul had told me that he's a big fan of purple gin, specifically Empress gin, which is produced here in British Columbia. It's a very, very beautiful indigo purple color. And then when you add tonic water to it, the color changes to a soft violet, pinkish sort of color. So it's very charming and fun visually when you go to drink it. And he wanted to replicate that. So we decided to also use butterfly pea flowers to color one of our gins, gin number 3. And I still have it. Let me show you what it looks like now, which is 3 months afterwards. So this is the color of the gin 3 months after we made it in India. And the color is still quite nice. I just kept it indoors. But we don't know how long this natural color will last and how long until it fades away. So I was doing some forced color degradation tests to see how long the color in that gin would stay stable for and when it would start to fade. To figure out how long the color would be stable for, we made up some samples of gin and we colored them naturally. One had the butterfly pea flower, and another gin we steeped with hibiscus flowers for a nice pink color. And we also used saffron threads to get a yellow gin. And we also tried to do a brown gin as well. For the color degradation tests, I measured out 700 milliliters of 40% ABV extra neutral spirit. And then for the yellow one, I added 13 threads of saffron, 3 grams of hibiscus into the pink one. And for the butterfly pea flower, I put in 1.75 grams. I steeped the flowers for a few hours and then I strained out the flowers. And you can see the color is quite intense initially. There are a few different ways that you can measure color and how color changes throughout time. They just happen to have a spectrophotometer in the lab, so that's what we use to measure the intensity of color as it changed and faded over time. So here's a basic definition of how this spectrophotometer works. It's used to quantitatively measure color intensity of a sample by analyzing how light interacts with it. It measures the amount of light reflected or transmitted at different wavelengths across the visible spectrum, generating a spectral curve that represents the color's unique signature. So how this works in practicality is you'll fill a cuvette or a little tube with the liquid sample, and we measured it once before we bottled it, and then you continue to measure it every month or every 3 months or at whatever interval you like, just to get a quantitative reading of how the color is changing. You want to make sure the surface of the cuvette is clean and free from dust or oils or your fingerprints, because again, it's really finicky. It's a measurement of how light passes through the cuvette. So if the cuvette is dirty, it's really going to impact your measurement. So that's why we would do 3 different readings in the spectrophotometer with the same sample, just to confirm that the reading that we get is accurate. It had been a really long time since I'd used a spectrophotometer, so I really relied on Shailendra to do that part and those measurements. He was telling me the higher the number on the spectrophotometer, if it was higher, then it meant the color was fading more quickly, and if the number was lower, then it was fading less quickly. So that's how we read those numbers. And you can see we measured it initially when we first made up the colored samples, and then we measured it at the end after about 10 days, so not long at all. And we kept some in sunlight, some indoors, and some in a box in complete darkness. For these measurements to be more useful, Shailendra would need to measure the samples every, say, 2 weeks or every month over and over again, so we can plot out how the intensity of the color is changing throughout. And then we can say, okay, the yellow color will be stable for about 3-4 months before there's it starts to be a big difference and it starts to really fade. Or, okay, but the purple color, it's good for 6 months, and then it starts to fade pretty quickly. So that's what I wanted to figure out. But of course, Shailendra will have to keep doing those measurements in order to make that graph up. I think they're actually planning to just send the samples to a lab so that they can do forced color degradation tests, and they can come up with those results a lot quicker. They have the equipment to do that. I recently called a food testing lab in Canada to see how much these kind of tests will cost. And just to measure pH for a sample was $40. And for a simple microbiological package that tests pathogens like Salmonella, it can cost anywhere from $116 to over $200 per sample. It's usually over $100, if not a couple $100 every sample that you take to measure. Now, it wasn't just all work and no play while I was there. I did get to do some sightseeing, and my boss, Raul, actually took me on a day trip to see Konark Temple. You can see it on this map here. This Sun Temple is very interesting because it's designed to resemble a chariot. So in the front of the temple, you'll see there's horses, and then on the sides of the temple are these sundials or wheels. And you can actually use these sundials to tell what time of day it is, depending on how the sunlight is hitting it. Another thing that's super interesting about the Sun Temple is it's covered in carvings of people having sex. This is one of my favorite carvings. I was told by the tour guide that back in the day they thought STDs could be cured by dogs licking it. So here we have a woman and a dog underneath her licking her privates. Since I had 2 assistants helping me do all these gin experiments, the work went very quickly, And actually there was a lot of time for me just to play around and make other types of drinks. They were really encouraging me to do that. So in the next part 4 of this series, you'll see me making a lot of different liqueurs, ouzo, limoncello, a lot of different things, which I'll talk about in part 4 of this series. So I hope you're enjoying this video series so far. Please support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up, leaving a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I'll see you in the next part. This is Bluebird, sending good vibes your way. I'll see you next time.